Senate.
Yes, Pamela Moses made national headlines when she was sentenced to 6 years in prison for illegally registering to vote. She admitted to registering despite a felony conviction, but said probation officials told her she was eligible to vote. That case was eventually dropped, clearing the way for Moses to launch her campaign today. WRG's Shay Arthur talked with Moses about her bid for office. And Shay, what did she have to say?
Hey, Greg. Hey, Stephanie. Well, I talked to Moses as she told me she was on her way to file a petition to run as an independent. But tonight she's at
Hello, and welcome everyone. Welcome back to News, Facts, and Comments Sunday Wrap Session. I am Achoti Tamor, and as you can see on the screen, we do have live in-house tonight Pamela Moses. She's running for the United States Senate, representing all Tennesseans. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and bring in our dear sister Pamela Moses, so we can get this conversation started, find out how things are going with her since she announced her candidacy for Senate. Sister, tell the people who you are and remind them why you're here today.
Hello. Greetings, everyone. This is P. Moses, Pamela P. Moses. Pamela Janine Moses is what you'll see on November 5th. And I am here for the people. That's just the best way to sum up this election. You know, this is the campaign for change in which we've created in Tennessee, and we're here to bring real change towards our state, towards our nation, and towards the people who've been forgotten in Tennessee.
All right, my sister. So we're not going to mess around because I know that your time is very valuable. And so we're going to go straight to the hard knock questions. What's it been like on the campaign trail so far?
Man, I guess the best way to describe it is it's been a roller coaster from the time that I announced, before I announced. Devil's been busy, but you know, I have a great committee, the Committee for Change, the committee to elect Pamela Moses. Like, they've been through me with thick and thin. I don't think I could do it without those people who are supporting me wholeheartedly. I had my wallet stolen from the courthouse.
Oh my goodness.
Which we think was an inside job. And, you know, I'm very appreciative of media like you, because you're the real deal. Even though you're not like on a national network, you're the real deal, because the media actually covered the fact that my wallet was stolen, but they never mentioned that it was my wallet, just so they could deliberately keep from having to look into the how it was stolen from a courthouse with 50 some cameras, and they don't know who did it, and 23 minutes is missing from the tape. So that's how I began
Wow.
Yeah, this happened. True story. One of my committee members were with me. We actually were in the law libraries where we think it could have been stolen, but we really don't know because they won't produce the information. So we're hoping that Homeland Security and possibly the CIA is going to get involved, because my wallet had campaign, bank information inside of it. So that was how it began. But then our announcement was really good. We had a lot of pushback from the people in Homeland Security in Nashville, because they tried to pretend like they didn't know we were doing it, even though they knew we were doing it. But we got it done, and it was a success. It's not about being on TV and getting a whole bunch of camera time. What's important to me is that I get the opportunity to discuss the things that are affecting the people in Tennessee. And when I say the people, I mean the everyday people that they forget they represent when they're up there in Washington. And that's why I'm in this race, because I want to put a voice back with the people.
Right. So I know that there's a whole strenuous process that one must go through in order to get on the ballot. Can you explain to the people how that works and how that works in regards to Ballotpedia, which you see on the screen there.
Jacinda Williams.
Oh, sorry, no, not that. But here we go. Congressional elections. Here.
Okay, so like federally, the federal process is a lot harder than the state process. The federal process, you have to go through a lot of, red tape and paperwork, which my committee and treasurer helped me with. And then with the state level, you have to get a certain amount of signatures. Now, a lot for some reason, Memphis, they did not. Everybody turned their signatures in from all, because I didn't just get county signatures from Shelby County where I reside. I had signatures from Knox County, Rutherford County, Madison County, Williamson County. Like I worked the whole state to let people hey, I'm thinking about running. Do you think I should? And they were like, yeah, well, would you sign my petition? And so like they have to make sure that the signatures match. Like I can't just write somebody's name down. Everybody has to, sign it and put the correct address in which they are registered to vote. And yeah, it's strenuous for someone that's lazy, but I'm a hard worker and I'm gonna work hard for the people when I get elected. So we got it done. I'm an official candidate in the November 5th, 2024 election. You'll see Donald J. Trump, Joe Biden, Robert F. Kennedy, Cornel West, and right up under that, you'll see Pamela Moses. Now, don't get
All right.
yeah, don't get distracted with those political parties. That's why you see behind me my background is red, white, and blue because I want to represent everyone.
Very good. Very good. So, how many signatures do you have to garner in order to qualify to get on the ballot?
You need at least 25, but you want to get at least 3 times that in case like maybe somebody's been purged because they did not vote. Like if they didn't vote, if you miss 3 consecutive elections, they automatically purge you. And that's one thing I want to also remind people. Before October 1st, you need to check and make sure you're registered to vote, because one thing that the election commissions do to disenfranchise Black people is they'll go in before a major presidential election and they will purge as many people as possible. If you've moved and you haven't updated, they could possibly purge you. If your address is one thing with the Department of Homeland Security, it's different. So you want to make sure that you are registered to vote so you can vote for Pamela Moses on November 5th.
So, in Tennessee, are you aware of how many people are African American? African Americans that actually set out of the primaries that did not participate
In the in I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
in the primary elections. Have the primaries taken place in Tennessee yet?
No, they're not until August.
Not until August. Okay. August. Okay. So, is the sentiment? Do you think that the sentiment amongst voters are we're going to vote for independent as opposed to voting for the status quo, Democrat, Republican, red, blue?
I don't know. I think right now, and you have to forgive me if I get a little emotional. I was up really late last night to about 10 p.m. out in Orange Mound, it is the most historical Black neighborhood because it was the first place that Black people could buy houses in the country. And there was a mass shooting there. I'm not sure what took place, but I think over 16 people got shot. And so I say that to say that, like, I don't really get involved at this point in my life in Democrat and Republican because I didn't see not one Democrat or Republican out there, you know, that was elected or running for office other than myself, and I'm not a Democrat or a Republican right now. So I didn't see anybody out there. And you had parents that didn't know if their children were dead or alive. And so, people, this year is going to be different because that was the most horrendous thing I think I've ever seen in Memphis. Not because what had happened, shootings happen here every day, but because there was literally a barrier of yellow tape separating police and emotional family members from finding out whether their children were dead or alive, and no one was communicating with them but me. And I did that. I even, as much as I've had, some type of problems with the police, never really the Memphis police, usually the sheriff, but I took the initiative to say, look, this woman's looking for her son. She's been missing for hours. Can you at least take down, their information? And that Memphis police officer, he came over the yellow line to me and said, where are they? Where are they, Miss Moses? I said, right here. And so I kind of worked as an anchor to bridge the community with the police. And I was like, this is how you repair the breach. So, anybody this year that's not paying attention to Gaza, that's not paying attention to healthcare, that's not paying attention to the poverty, the violence, all the real things that are plaguing us as Americans, they're not going to the polls this year looking for Democrat or Republican. They're going to the polls looking for change. And I believe that the change that America needs is the change that a lot of people are afraid of. But I believe, just like I declared my independence, just like Cornel West declared his independence, just like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. declared his independence. I believe this is the year where people are going to declare their independence like they did in 2016 and said, you know what? We don't want the establishment and the status quo anymore. We want change, and we don't care if that change is radical. We don't care if that change it doesn't look like us. We want something else. And I believe that the great Tennesseans, those who are true volunteers and patriots like myself, they're going to cast their vote for the only name on that ballot that represents the people, and that's Pamela Moses.
Yes, yes. You and Cornel West are aligned in so many ways. Have you had an opportunity to speak with him?
Absolutely not. You know, I've spoken with the Kennedy team. Those are the people who've been supportive of my campaign. We actually had a cannabis, and it was 420 yesterday, so we had a pre-Earth Day cannabis and conversations, like crack here in Hollywood, and we discussed crime while this mass shooting was happening. Now, I think I've met Cornel West in the past, but that was like many years ago. But I have not talked to him. And, I really wanted to support him, but I was, when I saw who he picked for VP, I knew that I couldn't like wholeheartedly support him. And, we could talk about that offline or we talk about it now. But I think what Cornel West is doing up there in Colombia with those students, those Palestinian students, engaging them, igniting them, making them know that their voice matters in America, I think that is just fabulous. And I do support that, what Cornel West is doing. But when it comes to, you know, being president of the United States, I think I have more in common with Robert F. Kennedy because of his past, his what he's been through, and his environmental stance. Like that's where I stand. I've been through stuff. So I'm not the typical candidate. I'm not the polished politician. I'm a musician, you know? And so I I'm not gonna say that I don't support Cornel West, but right now I'm aligned with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, just see, we get so caught up on labels, right? And we forget about what we're supposed to be focused on. Like, what's the mission? Like, what are the topics that a person such as yourself can move us forward with, outside of just being a Democrat or just being stuck in some type of label. And I'm so glad that you decided to be independent and get your voice heard, and that matters. Now, there are a couple of other independent candidates that's running as well, aren't isn't there? Or is there any other independent candidate that's running for Senate as well?
I think they are. One of them is, I guess, what they would call a spoiler. I won't mention any other candidates' names, but nobody in the Tennessee United States Senate race, in the independent, Republican, or Democrat, none of them are born and bred Tennesseans like myself. Now, I was born in Kingsport, Tennessee, which is Sullivan County. That's way up near the Bristol, Virginia line. I grew up in Madison County, which is Jackson, Tennessee. I went to school when my parents divorced in Shelby County, which is Memphis, Tennessee. And then I got my first college degree from Knox County, which is Knoxville, Tennessee. And I did a little couple stints, in Nashville, Tennessee. I I promoted my music throughout Cookville and Crossville and Murfreesboro and Chattanooga, Tennessee. So none of the candidates can say that they know every inch of the state the way I do. Whether they're independent, Democrat, or Republican, none of them are invested in the state of Tennessee's well being, such as myself.
And then another positive you have is that people know you there. You've been an activist in the community. It's not that like the normal politicians that only come around election time. And so
Yeah.
you're a familiar face to them. And so I think that is an advantage point to you. Tell me about the current Senator Marsha Blackburn. What's she like?
She's not interested in helping people that are marginalized. She's more caught up in being, I think, Donald Trump's cheerleader right now. That's all I ever hear her talking about, what she's going to do for the president and things like that. I don't never hear her speak about criminal justice reform. I don't hear her speak about, the veterans, that she cut their ability. There was a bill, and one of the veterans I know in Nashville, he was like, "Do you know she voted against us getting a raise?" And I was like, "No, I didn't know that." So, I was just focused on the issues that are important to most of the people I know. And then I was like, I created this whole new group of veterans for Moses, because the veterans, like, they were supposed to get like $1 or some type of raise in their benefits. And she voted against the veterans. And so, anybody in this country, white, black, or indifferent, willing to go fight for America, and you vote against anything that is for their well-being, you are not an American. You're a traitor. Because I have never been in the military. But if I gave my life, or I was willing to put my life on the line, which I'm doing now, running for office, and you don't want to give me a little increase, everything has went up. Milk, eggs, gas, food, housing, you know, everything has went up. And she voted against that. So that's what I do know about my opponent.
So she's only interested in helping the ones that already have and not the have nots. Sounds like to me. Um, so with that being said, we know that you're running for Senate and you guys basically control the purse straps, right? So with appropriations and looking at war time right now, what's your stance on Congress continuing to fund these wars overseas?
I'm totally against the one they just passed the other day with, was it $95 billion. I'm totally against that. I do not think that that was appropriate. What they should be funding is the genocide relief, because that's what has happened over there in Palestine. There has been genocide against babies and innocent civilians, and I will never support any legislation like that. Now, the Bible tells us there's a time for war, there's a time for peace. But what's been going on in Israel and Palestine has been going on since my father was born. Someone who's directly connected to that, region, only because of, who his parents were, and And he told me, to stay out of it because it was two families, fighting amongst each other. And I was like, how can you stay out of it when those people that I see dying look more like me than they do them? And he was just, people have become so complacent with the war in Israel and Gaza that everybody just wants to stay out of it, including our president, who it took him forever to say ceasefire. And then he still hasn't put his foot down like he could. So that, it disturbs me. Like, I think that the relief that should be funded right now for Palestine should be relief on restoring the people that have suffered so much. That they shouldn't be giving them more missiles and things like that. As far as Ukraine, I feel like that's a war where they're fighting over lithium and they're not being honest with the American people about it. I know that they're trying to be um, a democracy, which is good. But I just really believe, charity begins at home. And we have people suffering here in America. Hey, go outside, look around, go to Chicago, go to New York, go look at the homeless people in California on Skid Row. When are we going to give some relief to the American people?
So what are your thoughts on these states funding these immigrants that are basically taking the resources from Americans?
I have the same position. I believe that charity begins at home. I think that everybody has a right to come to this country if they want to, but there's a process that's in place. My father went through that process. He didn't just come over here and become an American. He had to wait. He had to come over here and on a visa or something like that for a while. And he had to work. And since he's been in this country for 80 some years, he's never been arrested. He's never been involved in anything immoral. He's never robbed anybody. I think that the process that was in place was a good process. It may not have been working as fast as some people like it, but I think that we need to go back to that process. And then when it comes to refugees, I think that all refugees need to get the same consideration, including the Haitians and the Africans, that the people who are that are really suffering. They're suffering from poverty. In Mexico. Well, so are we in America. And if we ran across their borders the way they're running across ours, the Mexican cartel would shoot them dead. So, I think that we have to get back to American values and protecting Americans. And as a real volunteer, I'm stepping up for my people. I can't save the world and not save my neighbors. There are people that live in my community that don't know where their next meal are coming from. They don't know how to get out of, systematic poverty. There are people that come from this country, such as the Patels that own every hotel in
Mm-hmm.
America that the Hiltons don't own, and they've built an empire. But our people who've been here our whole life, our grandmother's whole life, our great grandmother's whole life, we don't have nothing. We don't even own a grocery store in Memphis, Tennessee, where it's an 83% minority and black population. We don't even own one grocery store. But you think the Middle Eastern and the Chinese and the Vietnamese, you think they don't have a grocery store? They've had one for years. We gonna
Yeah.
get our piece of the American pie.
Yeah, it is totally unacceptable the amount of food deserts we have in our communities. It doesn't exist anywhere else but in our communities. Yes, you're absolutely right, sister. So, you know, um, President Biden has did an executive order, I believe, uh, in an effort to deal with affordable housing and that shortage. It just seems kind of ironic that that is coming up now that they're scrambling to find places for the immigrants to live.
Hmm.
How do you think that those contracts or those funds will be awarded, and how do small business contractors, contractors, how do they fit into that? And is the playing field going to be fair in regards to them being able to take advantage of those funds?
Well, just like I criticize folks, I'm going to always offer constructive criticism as well. Like, if there are contracts that President Biden has put in place for, minority and small business contracts, we need to seize the moment. We need to be trying to get our LLCs together. If we don't have them together, we need to be trying to get insurance. That's one thing most business owners don't know. The first thing you do after you get your LLC is get you some insurance. And we should try to utilize that process. But one thing I tell you that I've learned here in Memphis, a lot of contracts, you know they have these gatekeepers. You may think that you can get the contract, but they've already promised it to someone else. So I think that the process needs to be transparent. However it's being done, it should be transparent. And just like when Trump was president and he gave all those people those loans because they went through a process, I think that government contracts should be the same way. Everybody should be able to get them. And I think that if we do get them, that could help. But I don't know, like you said, is it really for us or is it for them?
Right, right. Now, I've been waiting for a long time to ask someone this. How exactly do you go about getting a representative to bring an idea or a bill to the floor for you all to consider? Because there are a lot of, you're just everyday laymen that have a lot of ideas that can help fix our communities, but they don't have no idea how to reach out to the state legislature or even at the federal congressional level. So can you kind of walk us through that process and what you'll be willing to take a listen to?
Well, the way it's supposed to work is it begins with a phone call or an email. You schedule an appointment and you have a series of conversations. And if you're like me, I haven't done it in a while, but if you're like me, when I go to my legislator, I've already got the resolution drafted. I have it drafted for them. God bless her soul. She's a Democratic, Barbara Cooper. She was just so impressed with everything I did. She was like, "You should run for public office." I've never seen somebody. All she had to do was take my stuff to legal when I brought it to her because it was ready to go. So, everybody's not that astute, but that's the best way to get something done in legislation. You draft it for the legislator that you're lobbying. It's called lobbying. You lobby them. You talk to them. You have other people talk to them. You have groups talk to them. You call them, and then they push it to a committee, and then the committee they talk to people about it on the record, and then they take a vote. If it passes out of committee, then it goes to the House. After it goes through the House, then it goes through the Senate. If it then passes both committees, then it goes to the president for legislature. That's how government works. It's not a complicated process, but it's a process in which many people, for example, in Tennessee, 500,000 people have been disenfranchised for the process. You talk to me about what has happened, since I started my campaign. Well, the governor, I had brought a resolution to him where I wanted him an executive order for him to reinstate the 500,000 people who have been disenfranchised through voting rights. And there was a 22-year-old running the Capitol, a 22-year-old from Bethel College running the governor's office. And so I did what I do because I'm very invested in my community. And I pulled up on the governor at a private event where he thought he was going to have a good time, but it was all changed because Pamela Moses was there. Like, oh, did you get my message about the resolution that I dropped off? Why is a 22-year-old running your office? I'm a constituent. Whether you think highly of me or not, I am a taxpayer. I'm a constituent, and there are 500,000 people who have their rights that are disenfranchised, and I need to talk to you. Now, he's still been dodging me since then. I did get an email or a call from someone in constituent services. But like I told you beforehand, I don't really get involved in too much on the state level because right now the Republicans have a majority in the Senate, the House, and the executive branch, which
Yeah.
is the governor. So, like, I'm not going to waste my time talking to people that don't want to talk to me. What I will do is go to Washington and talk to the Republican Congressman Bill Haggerty, who, he's a Republican, but I don't have a problem getting into his office talking to somebody about my concerns. I've been up there before. So I will go talk to the people in the federal government. And that's why I chose to run for federal office, because I believe as convoluted and as bad as our government is right now, I always feel like that you can get some relief from the federal government.
So Cornel West has pledged not to take any funds from special interests. Do you agree with that?
I mean, that's what he wants to do. My campaign could use some funds. If a special interest group gives me some funds, I'm going to accept them depending on who it is. Now, I'm not going to take money from the Ku Klux Klan or anything like that, but
Right.
I'm not going to allow special interests to control me. I'm going to still answer to my constituents. I appreciate the support, but any special interest group that supports me, I am going to support what their interests are. But if my constituents say, hey, and the constituents are the ones who voted for me, the ones who I represent in Tennessee, if they say, hey, we don't like that, Miss Moses, I'm going to have town hall meetings. I'm going to have virtual meetings, and I'm going to listen to what my constituents say. At the end of the day, a special interest group is never going to control Pamela Moses. Only the people I represent will control me, because those are the only people I'll answer to.
So being is that the climate is right for, like you said, independent to go ahead and slide into that Senate seat. How can I say this? If you're able and successful to take advantage of that seat, have you considered legislation that you can put forth that would require us not to have, or Congress not to have to keep coming back ever so often to renew what we call the Voting Rights Act?
That was a compounded question. I'm trying to. Okay, first of all, the Voting Rights Act of 1968, it never should have been touched. There was nothing wrong with that legislation. If anything, I mean, you can always improve something, but you should never take away from such historical legislation. The legislation that I would put forth would be one man, one vote. If you're a citizen, you get a vote. Period. All that other stuff, oh, you've been convicted of a felony. Okay. There are people in other countries that have been charged with murder. They still have their right to vote. Only this country do we take people's right to vote and commit civil death against them.
Right. So that means that if you, what you're saying is that if you commit a crime and you actually do you serve out your entire sentence, and you're done with the criminal system and you're out now you should have your voting rights restored. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. In Chicago, Illinois, you're automatically reinstated. Reinstated.
Mm-hmm.
Your rights are automatically restored. You're automatically reinstated. You don't have to do anything. So, that's how it should be done.
So you mentioned Cornel West, and of course, now there's a lot of talk about reparations. And I don't know if you're aware, but on the House floor last week, there was a senator, I want to say Reagan, introduced a bill that will ban the talk of reparations. Cornel West has said that he is for reparations. So, do you find it ironic that this gentleman would propose such a bill right around the time where we got two conventions coming up regarding reparations? California is considering it. Chicago is considering reparations on local levels. So, what gives with that bill from the gentleman from Tennessee?
I don't find it ironic that a lot of the legislators, and not all of them, and not all the Republican ones, a lot of them are just racist. That's just what it is, you know? And anyone that thinks that you can restrict my right to talk about something, you're not only racist, but you're a traitor because you took an oath to uphold the Constitution. And the First Amendment of the United States Constitution says that we have freedom of speech. So if I want to talk about reparations, we can talk about it. Y'all talked about renaming, that probably was the same one that wanted to talk about renaming Representative John Lewis Wade to Donald Trump Wade. And nobody said, well, we're going to. I think that was the same one. You have to look it up. But, you know, that's why I don't get involved in state of things, because until the Democrats or the Republicans or the independents flip either the House or the Senate, where there's no longer a supermajority, they're going to continue to be the non-progressive, hateful, non-Christian, you know, evil legislator that they are. They all do this and say this, that they're Christians, but they're up there giving all these children guns and giving them the right to carry guns, and they're down here in Memphis killing each other. And then they say that, oh, it's okay. Even when the Covenant shooting happened in Nashville, and those were, I think, only one black person. Those were white people that got killed at a Christian school. Those evil legislators still didn't want to put forth any type of legislation to curb gun control. Now, I'm all for the Second Amendment. I think everybody should have the right to carry a gun in their house, in their car. But when it comes to seeing what's really going on out here and people just dying of senseless gun violence, you can't call yourself a Christian if you're not doing anything to stop that. And those are the same people that you're talking about who saying we're not going to talk about reparations. That's what I really do like about Cornel West, that he took that stand. But Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's for reparations also. So, you know, yeah. So, you know, I think that people need to have conversations that they don't want to have, and it'll lead to better legislation.
Now, so you mentioned Cornel West again, and so I'm just going to have to ask you, what's with the VP pick? What's about her that doesn't sit right in your spirit?
Kadarius Johnson. He's a black male. He may be about 25, 26 years old. Never been arrested a day in his life. And he's sitting out there in jail in Los Angeles, California. I've been out there, I think, twice to try to help. And, you know, I don't know anything about California. You know, I kind of stick to what I know. But I know the LAPD is one of the most corrupt police forces I've ever seen. But he's accused of, you know, raping people, and he's being held on an $8 million bond. And so we were told, like, what social activists or that we should contact. And everybody's like, oh, contact Melina Abdullah or whatever. And we did. And we basically got a robo text from what's the community thing called? It's like, I'm sorry, what is it called? Like, not OnlyFans, but the thing that celebrities have.
I'm not familiar with it. I'm sorry, sister. But go ahead with your story. Go ahead.
She didn't reach back. And an innocent.
Oh wow, sister's cutting in. I'm sorry, sister. You on mute. You muted yourself. There you go. Yeah. Can you say that again? You had muted yourself.
Okay. I said if she's going to be vice president, And this person's been in jail for 2 years because she didn't try to help. I can't see how that's going to benefit Black people.
So you're maybe you said this when you were cutting out. So how does she know? How does she know this young man?
Well, I think it was Ben Crump or somebody said that she could help, and they never did. And I know this for a fact. And
Hmm.
so I'm sorry, my allergies are bothering. But yeah, that's
Well,
why I can't wholeheartedly support him, because when it comes to his judgment and who could be in charge if he was not able to do it, I'm not sold on it.
hmm. Well, maybe he doesn't know. I'm not trying to make any excuses for him or anything like that. Maybe he doesn't know about that particular incident. I'm not sure. Hmm. That's interesting. Very interesting.
Well, I mean, all I know is I've never had the financing as other activists, but I still went out there to California, investigated it. In fact, he had the same judge that Michael Jackson had. Uh, Forgot his name, uh, but the judge had so much like reservation about the case. They made like he was about to die, and he never came back. And then all of a sudden, they had another judge handle the case, and then the judge came back. So it was just really weird. But the LAPD is really corrupt, and she's out there and she knows that in certain cases, just because he's accused of rape, you can't just assume that a Black man raped somebody because they're accused of it. And I feel like because we get to a point with this feminist movement that we don't want to stand up for Black men. I'm looking at the fact that he hadn't been in any trouble ever,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that he may have, and one of the girls, he had been in a 2 or 3 relationships. So it's basically like a police officer was using their power to punish somebody who broke their daughter's heart and holding them in jail on an $8 million bond. And nobody in LA would look into it, and they kept saying that she would, and she never did. So that's all I know that's got me feeling that way. It doesn't take anything from Cornell West, but I think maybe if he would have picked like Scanahan and like, Robert F. Kennedy, 30-some-year-old young progressive, grew up in Oakland, California on food stamps, people I can relate to, a genius, left the Democratic Party. If he'd have picked somebody, on his level, I think I probably could have supported him a lot more. It's not saying I don't support him. I'm just saying I'm supporting Robert F. Kennedy at this time.
Roger that. Now, before I give you the last words, I want to acknowledge what our sister in the chat said. Linda Williams said, John F. Kennedy for money, tangible reparations. So that's the question: is do you know if John F. Kennedy is for money, tangible reparations, or is he just for programs? That was the question.
Um, John F. Kennedy's dead. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running for president. And
Right, sister. Good catch. I'm just reading a comment, and that was all.
yeah, and I'm not sure. I just know that he's for legalization of marijuana, protecting the environment, healing America, and those are the things that I want to do as well. I don't know. That would be a question for him. I haven't had that conversation with him, but I will ask him. I'm for me personally. I'm for land, because I think if we could get the land along with a little bit of money to do something with the land, I think that would really benefit Black people. And I think it's time. I mean, it's time. Like, anybody that's against reparations, then give up something that your ancestors got. because a lot of people are in the position that they are in, including myself, because of what my parents or grandparents had. And Marcia, I don't want to say her name, but my opponent, her folks were slave owners. Okay? Go
Okay.
do your research of who Blackburn, that family was. If she's not for reparation, then she should be, because everything you got off the backs of black slaves.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's a fact. And that was what the House representative, his name is Larry Miller in Tennessee. That's what he said to the gentleman that proposed banning any type of taxpayer funding going towards any talk or commission or payment for reparations. So your opponent, has she taken a stance on reparations?
I'm sure she's against it, but I'm not sure. Like, I can't, if I don't know, I'm not gonna say, but I'm sure she's against it. If she hadn't proposed any legislation for it. And we
Mhm.
live in Tennessee. Now you have to understand what Tennessee, that's an indigenous name. Tennessee used to be a part of North Carolina. And North Carolina and Tennessee, that's where the Trail of Tears occurred. In fact, I live on the same street that's named after President Andrew Jackson. That's where they marched all of the Indians from North Carolina, 2 million or 3 million of them, into the Mississippi River. And so, along the way, and this is what other, elders have told me, they would see black people who were already here, or I wouldn't say black people, but Indians that were already here that they thought were their Indians, and they would grab them and take them too. And so, like, we have, as indigenous people and as a person of color, my grandmother's my maternal grandmother's Cherokee Choctaw, Chickasaw, we have experienced a lot, and it's time for people to atone for their sins. And the only way that you can atone in 2024 is with reparations, legislation that includes reparation. If you're not talking about that, then you're not talking about doing anything that benefits our people. And we shouldn't be voting for you, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. We should be voting for the candidate that is aligned with the best interests of their constituents.
And that's definitely right, my sister. I agree with you on that point. And so if reparations does that, when it comes down to voting for reparations, how do you reach those who say they're foundational Black Americans, FBA, or they're ADOs, Afro descendants of slaves? There is a mass divide between the two factions. And me, quite frankly, I don't understand what the problem is, but there are some that are saying that people who were not indigenous to this land should not be receiving reparations.
And you mean those who have migrated over here? Is that
No,
what?
no, we're speaking about people who came over from the transatlantic slave trade, obviously, because you have to be a foundational Black American. So foundational Black American is equivalent to indigenous.
Well,
So if you're foundational Black American, then that would leave out Afro descendants.
well, the way if I wrote the legislation today, the way I would write it, and I would go back at least 100 to 200, 300, maybe 400 years and look at I mean, this is 2024. They got the records. They got, you can do ancestry. I mean, they have databases. They know who we are. If you convicted of a felony in Tennessee, they take your DNA and put it on a database. They know who we are. We know who we are. And I believe that the priority should be given to those who are indigenous first, meaning that they were born on this land, or their parents and grandparents were born on this land. And then maybe a second level for that, or even vice versa, the people that were brought over here. But I think that all people, I don't think that the people who have, migrated over here should be included in that, because there are some Africans that do not consider themselves black, or people, they don't even identify with me. There's some that do. It
Right.
depends on if they came over here from as a refugee from a genocide, or if they just came over here through a visa. It's a difference. You got to know who you are in this world. And so I think that the people like me, whose grandmother was indigenous, whose grandfather, I'm thinking on my paternal side, my grandfather came from Tupelo, Mississippi, where Cherokee, reside. I think those people should have priority, because we've never received what we should have. And it's affected not only us but our children. And it's time for people to put up. We don't sit up and try to say, oh, how we gonna, what was it when they proposed something with the not the, like the Chinese or the Japanese, when they were proposing things for them, they don't sit up and try to figure out, are they Japanese American and this and that. When it comes to them, you know, I know what it was. It was in Atlanta when those Chinese people got attacked at the masseuse, and they were making all these apologies to them for that happening, because they were targeted because of their nationality. They don't sit up and try to figure out who we need to apologize to. So they shouldn't be trying to figure out how they're going to give us what they owe us.
So, what do you think about the idea of having two separate bills? Because a lot of those immigrants that came over here, their parents, forefathers were not slaves, right? They're saying that they still suffered from discrimination. You know, how do we compensate them? Do we have two separate bills, like an anti-discrimination against black folk bill, in addition to a reparations bill?
I mean, you might could put it in one large legislation. Like me personally, if you black, you've been discriminated against in this America. I don't know a black person that has not been discriminated against in this country. Like, if they say that they haven't, then they aren't living in the real world, or they have never been to the South, you know. But I would probably, I personally, I need a little bit more information on that, because I don't want to misspeak. But I think there's ways, if you're drafting legislation, to appease both sides without offending. Uh, it's called compromise. And that's what we need more of in our legislation, is that a little give, a little take, and then we come together and make our constituents and our people know that government is working for them.
Right, right. So another question before you leave. I know you have to leave, but I do have to ask your opinion on Senate Bill 3589, and that's preventing private paramilitary activity.
Preventing private what?
Paramilitary activity, like militias,
Um,
paramilitary.
Again, like, I'm for the Second Amendment. I think that that's one of the most precious, rights, to be able to bear arms, so that way government doesn't get too strong that they think they can come in and, take over you, because they do that. They take over. I've seen them take over people's property. But I think that when it comes to militias, like, if their mission is hateful, or they're trying to disrupt or undermine democracy, I think there should be some legislation for that. But I don't think we should restrict people's Second Amendment rights.
Roger that. Well, my sister, thank you so much for being so honest and candid with your answers to these questions. We want to make sure that we say salute to you for taking on this endeavor. We want to wish you much success on that campaign trail. Also, be very careful out there, because when you're speaking truth, they don't like that.
Yeah,
So
they
I want to say congratulations, and we're looking forward to seeing you again, giving us more updates on how you're proceeding with your bid for the Senate seat. Um, from the state of Tennessee, Miss Pamela Moses, go ahead and give us your last words.
Well, just thank you again for having me. I will continue to have these conversations only with real media. And if you'd like to follow me, you can follow me on Pamela Moses US, any platform, or you can also go to our website, which is www.pamelamosesforsenate.com. I also would like to thank all my supporters, my committee, and the Campaign for Change. And if you want to see democracy restored, you'll vote your conscience and you'll vote for the only person that in this state will represent all people, and that's Pamela Moses. Thank you, and y'all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you again, my sisters, so very much. Many blessings to you, and until next time, that's a wrap. Enjoy the rest of your evening, my sister.
Okay.
Well, there you have it. That's U.S. Senate candidate Pamela Moses. It was a pleasure to get to know her once again, and we want to go ahead and thank everyone for tuning in to another edition of News, Facts, and Comments Sunday Wrap Session. I am Achoti Tamar. This has been News, Facts, and Comments in conjunction with MajorTv. Thanks to all who tuned in now. Please give us a thumbs up, share the video, and subscribe if you have not. This is brought to you by News, Facts, and Comments, MajorTv, and of course, Achoti Speaks. Join us again next Sunday for another special report right here on News, Facts, and Comments. We're going to be talking about the tragic situation that's happening in Haiti with our brother Haki Shakur. So make sure you're back here on next Sunday for another edition of News, Facts, and Comments, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm Achoti Tamar, and that's a wrap. Thank you for watching. Tune in next time, y'all.
One for the money, you know what it is. Two for the show, yeah, we shut it down. Three, just to make sure you ready. Four, let them know that we run this town. One for the money, you know what it is. Two for the show, yeah, we shut it down. Three, just to make sure you ready. Four, let them know that we run. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. You are now tuned in to the greatest. The greatest of all time. The greatest of all time.
I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna be better.
One for the money, you know what it is. Two for the show, yeah, we shut it down. Three, just to make sure you ready. Four, let them know that we run this town. One for the money, you know what it is. Two for the show, yeah, we shut it down. Three, just to make sure you ready.